This is lesson 4.7, writing equations in something called point-slope form. So our goal today, yet again, revolves around linear equations. And today what we're going to focus on is another way to look at linear equations called point-slope form, just a different format from what we've seen. We've seen slope-intercept form, we've seen standard form. So this is just another one to help us deepen our understanding of linear equations.
Alright, in this lesson we're going to take a look at another way to deal with linear equations other than slope-intercept and standard form. Alright, let's say we have to make a graph. And in this situation what's going to stump us a little bit is instead of being given the slope and the y-intercept to graph, we're just given some random point. Let's say -4, -3. And this point does happen to be on the line that we're about to graph, but it's not specifically the y-intercept. And then the other piece of information they give us is the slope. Now, this is different from what we've done before, but if you think about it, it's not that different. As long as we have some kind of starting point, it doesn't have to be the y-intercept, it can be any starting point, we should be able to graph the line. So if I start with the random point -4, -3, -4, -3, mark it, and then do my rise and run, which is 2/5 from that point, I still can graph my line with no problem. And notice how it's nowhere, the y-intercept would be somewhere here. It's not the y-intercept, it's just some random starting point that happens to be on my line. Up 2/5. And so as long as I've got a starting point and a direction to go in, that's all the information I need to graph a line. And there we go. And so what this brings us to is something called point-slope form. It's this idea that it doesn't have to be the slope-intercept. It can be just some point and then the slope. Now what if I need to write the equation? Well, there's a way to do that as well. So let's say my random point and my slope are denoted by these variables. We're going to call our random point x1 and y1. The ones are just to indicate that it's different from just plain old x and y like in any other equation. And then the slope we'll still use m. Well, it turns out that I can find the equation for this line without having to graph it by using this formula here. This is what's called point-slope form. Y minus y1 equals m, the slope, parentheses times x minus x1. Now notice the minus signs. This is one of the few formulas we'll deal with in this chapter that the subtraction sign is a part of the formula. So if I were to take this problem, the way I would do it is I would plug in my information. I would say y minus, now y1 is going to be -3, my y-coordinate for my 1 point, equals slope, which in this case is 2/5, times parentheses x minus, and then our x-coordinate will go here, in this case -4. And just to clean this up a little bit, minus and negative, we know that's really just plus, so y plus 3 equals 2/5 times parentheses x, and then minus a -4 is really plus 4. Alright, so this is a real quick introduction into how to graph when you're given just some point and a slope, and how to put it into an equation that describes the line in what's called point-slope form.